Okay, gang, back again. Part 3. Third and final part. Although I may do an addendum to this and just show a little close-up of this stack of books that I've got here. So to pick up where I left off, Tony closed that store in New Cumberland, and just a short time later vanished from the Silver Springs flea market, and I lost track of him. Millersburg, where his home and his store was an hour up the river from Carlisle, and I never really considered that I wanted to drive all the way up there or whatever. Kind of regret not doing that because I don't have any first-hand experience with his kind of home base. And I would have loved to have seen the entirety of his collection, all together there. Couple more things I remember buying from Tony were my upgrades to the Neal Adams X-Men. I think I said in the last video I bought a lot of Neal Adams related books from Tony. They were very easily had. And that was truly the really wonderful thing about having a comic book dealer in front of you and thousands of books at your fingertips. It was a totally different thing than mail order and the 4 to 6 weeks that you would have to wait for your books, and you wouldn't even know what you were going to get. Well, all of a sudden the books are right here in front of you and you can put them in your hand. That was just revelatory. Really, it was just an amazing thing to experience for the first time. We kind of all take that for granted now, walking into comic stores and conventions and things like that. But at the time, folks like me that didn't live in a major city, New York, Philadelphia, Los Angeles, whatever, we didn't have this instant access to books. I remember Tony gave me... Wait, I'm getting ahead of myself. So one day I wander into, circa 1987, wandered back into the Silver Springs flea market. I had never stopped going to the Silver Springs flea market on a regular basis. It was just a great place to go, comics or no comics. Wandered back in there, and his original stand was in the building on the right on the second floor. Well, I wandered into the building on the left on this particular day, and he was on the ground floor in the back. And I was shocked to see him. He instantly remembered me, and that was great. And again, because these few years had passed and I had matured and gotten out of high school and became a young adult, and I had a full-time job and all that, and I had all this disposable income, my sensibilities about comics had increased, and my focus was sharper, and I knew precisely what I wanted and things like that. And I was able to talk to Tony on a more sophisticated level, and he liked that, and I liked it too. More stuff here, and when I came back to Tony those last couple of years, my neighbor's child is screaming. I don't know if y'all could hear that or not, but it's fairly irritating. When I came back to Tony in those last years, I bought very little from the bargain bins. I wasn't paying any attention to the bargain bins because at this time, now I could easily afford $5 books, $10 books, $15 books, and I don't know. I didn't stoop down to the floor and dig through those bargain bins so much. And I was, some of the last books I bought from Tony were things like finishing off my Barry Smith Conan run. That was kind of a big deal, and I could finally afford those books because Conan, even in the late 80s, was still a kind of a hot title, a very in-demand title, at least those Barry Smith issues anyway. So I finished off that Conan run. I do have, we're getting down to the very end of the stack here. I have the next book you see, which is the last book in the stack, was the last book that I ever bought from Tony. A beauty it is. It is, it is, it is. This is the Tony copy. I actually got about 4 or 6 of these wholesale from the Joe Koch warehouse around the same time. It must have been 1989, maybe 1990, that I bought this from Tony, and also got those Koch warehouse books. But I know for certain this is my Tony copy. I just know these things. And that was it. I suppose it was 1990 when wandered down to the flea market one Sunday and Tony was gone again, and I never saw him again. And interestingly, here, just a few months ago, I had written some kind of comment on one of Nick's videos talking about Tony and Wolfhead comics, and another YouTuber stumbled on my comments, and he said, "Hey, I knew Tony, and I lived in Millersburg, and I used to hang out at his home and his shop all the time." And he actually filled me in. We exchanged a couple of emails then, and he filled me in that Tony had a stroke. I believe this was, Lord forgive me for not being prepared, I think it was in 2007, 2008, something like that, 2009, the late 2000s anyway. But that Tony had a stroke and became completely debilitated, and died sometime later due to the effects of the stroke. And I hated to hear that. It was like losing an old friend, and I suppose it was. I considered Tony more than an acquaintance. No, we weren't intimate friends, we weren't best buddies or all, but when you know somebody that long and you develop a rapport with them and are very friendly with each other, and you kind of light up every time you see the person, that's a friend. And I hated to hear that Tony is no longer with us. Anyway, I like all my other video reminiscence, I'm sure there's lots of stuff that I'm missing. However, I think I got the gist of it. I've been using my notes here the whole time. It's notes that I kind of scribbled down over a day or two. Definitely hit some of the highlights here. But it was a great time to be a collector, and Tony was absolutely a seminal figure, if not the seminal figure, in those years of my collecting. And I'll never forget him. So, thanks for watching, friends, and sticking with me through this. I am going to do a quick little video. I'm going to stand these books up over here in the mud room and run the camera over them. Again, thanks for watching. When I get back with the chronology, I suppose I'll be into 1977, I think. But I'll have to check my own video list and see where I am. But I think it's 1977. So when I get back with the chronology, that's where we will pick up. So, see y'all. Happy collecting. Bye-bye.